Think, 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 think.
Think, think, think.
Are you Pooh Bear?
I'm sure glad you said bear at the end of that. Mended light. All right, so we are discussing different personality types: dreamer, healer, closer, thinker. Thinker is my greatest weakness. I'm really working hard to step into it. It also happens to be
My number one strength.
your number one personality
Yeah.
type.
Yeah.
So what is a thinker? Why do we call them that? Because everybody else thinks. It's not like they're the only ones who think.
Yeah, I had someone misunderstand that one time. They're like, so you're saying nobody else thinks? And I'm like, no, no, no. No, 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 no. So your thinkers are your introverted, task-oriented personality type.
Yes.
They relate to the world through logic, understanding, evaluation. I have a joke that says thinkers show love through evaluation. The only problem is no other personality type receives love that way.
Yes.
And if you have a relationship with a thinker, either in a partnership or a parent-child relationship, and you are not a thinker, you absolutely knew what I meant immediately when I said that.
Well, it feels like criticism, but here's the thing. A thinker approaches the world by doing the research, right? By really understanding a subject, and generally they won't speak on a subject unless they are sure they know what they're talking about. They've done the research, they've thought it through, logic and reason, and this is why people turn to them for what's the plan? What's going on? What's the answer to this? Our children treat you like Google. Like they just
Yeah.
ask you questions, they assume you know, and the darndest thing is she's right more often than almost any search engine, right? She just knows because you've done so much reading and you've thought things through so much.
Well, and they tend to just suck up information and evaluate the world while they live it, right?
Yes.
You as a dreamer, you're interacting with the world through fun and playfulness and relationships. And I'm interacting with the world through logic and understanding and filtering information.
Yes.
It's a completely different life experience.
We love thinkers because they are in the know. We love thinkers because they don't just wing it. They always have a plan, and they're always reassessing their plan, right? They have a plan, they start to act on the plan, and then as it's all feedback loops, and they're always fine-tuning things.
And
it's
there's always
wonderful.
contingency plans. Like
Yeah.
if this happened, then that happens, and this is how I'm shifting my plan.
Yes. A struggle for a lot of thinkers is emotional intelligence because their value is on what's the most logical way to proceed, not on what's the most connecting way to proceed.
Right.
Sheldon from Big Bang Theory is
Yes, perfect example.
is a major thinker. They can also struggle with something called analysis paralysis. They are perfectionists, and so they want it to be just right. And until it's just right, they're not going to act. And closers are going to say, it's good enough. Can we keep going, right? Can we get this done?
Yeah.
But a thinker wants it to be perfect. And so sometimes they won't act because it's not ready. It's just not ready. You're fantastic at this. I mean, I know I'm ping-ponging a bit from strengths to weaknesses, which is driving her a little crazy, maybe?
This is crazy!
Maybe. It's fine. This was not the structure, but it's okay. I'm going with the flow.
Okay.
We're flowing.
Look at you. Look at you.
Growth.
But that's not the natural order of a thinker.
There's a plan, and they follow their plan. And when other people come in and not knowing that there's a plan, mess it up, it's very upsetting to the thinker, right?
Yes.
And so I said years ago, and one of my other thinker friends, when I shared this with them, they were like, yes, we needed to change our plan. I don't remember what the plan was, and it was the best thing to do to change it. It was late at night. We were in the kitchen. You know, life just seemed stressful with all the little kids we had in the business and stuff like that. And I was frustrated and flooded with emotion. In a less mature state, I wouldn't have handled it as well.
Yeah.
But I was recognizing, you know, the growth opportunity. And I was like, look, I had a plan.
Yeah.
And it's okay. We now have to change the plan, but you need to give me enough time to mourn the plan. and you just stared at me dumbfounded. And then you're like, she's a little bit serious.
Wait, are you serious?
And I was like, no, I'm a lot serious. We need to mourn the plan. Like, you have to just give me enough space to shift gears and to create another plan.
May the plan rest in peace. Thinkers like Alicia have a keen ability to see the whole picture, pieces fit together. And they're great at things like Jenga or anything where how moving one piece is going to affect another. They're great at chess and strategy. They're very keen strategists, are these thinkers, these analytical thinkers. And they don't get bored that easily. Things that would bore me to tears, they find invigorating and fascinating because they want to know how it works. And if you know somebody who has read the instruction manual from cover to cover, they are a thinker, 100%.
They save their instruction manuals because they're like, I might need this in the future. It's a thinker.
Okay, so I brought some dreamer energy and we ping-ponged from strengths to weaknesses and back to strengths. I think we're ready to talk a bit more about some of the weaknesses. Being married to a thinker, it's hard to argue with you because generally you're
Everything's
right.
so fact-based.
Yes, and where there's a little bit of wiggle room is if it's talking about my feelings or my emotions or my needs, because you can't argue that. But if it's about an actual plan,
Meh.
We out.
And they tend to be more rigid.
Yeah.
And because of that focus on facts and effectiveness, sometimes they tend to come off cold because they don't connect with the emotion or with the person or with the relationship.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean they don't connect with people like they do through facts and information.
yes. And we talk about all the personality types can show up as more mature or less mature. A more mature thinker actually leans harder into the thinker, and let me tell you what I mean by that. A more mature thinker cares about the facts and cares about what the most effective or efficient course of action is. So they can admit when they're wrong if they're presented with the clear facts. They're like, oh, okay, because they just care about what is. A less mature thinker is so married to being right and so used to being right.
And
that
they
it's-
tie their value
and
to
they
being
tie their
right.
value to being right, that it's
Yeah.
hard for them to admit when they're wrong or see it, and they will dig in their heels.
And that's one of the, well, not the digging in your heels part, but the construct part. That's one of the reasons why I love the personality system that we came up with, because I did not relate to the other personality types. And not only did I not relate, I had no awareness of them.
Yeah.
And so I needed a construct to follow. Like I needed a logical, well, this means that, and here's the next step, and here's what they value. So therefore, here's what they tie the worth to. So
Yeah.
therefore, this is how they show up in that situation, because it literally didn't make sense to me how people showed up in relationships. So a thinker, when they don't understand something or someone, generally someone, they look at the situation and they say, well, that person must be stupid.
Hey, I thought you were tied up. That's because you're stupid.
So if you know someone who uses the word stupid to describe an interaction, a person, some dynamic, that could be a very good indication that they're a thinker and they're not relating to that person or what that person values, right?
Yeah.
But once I understood, like, oh, my goal is effectiveness, especially being a thinker closer.
Yeah.
I'm a task-oriented person.
Yeah.
Like I have no relationship orientation in there. And that doesn't mean I don't care about people.
You have no natural relationship orientation in there. Because
Right,
as a thinker,
right.
you're like, okay, I can learn this.
Yes, yes. And so I needed a construct in which I could learn it in, right? But now I'm like, oh, these are the traits of a healer. This is what a healer values. So in a certain dynamic, this is how a healer is going to show up. I'm like, I can relate to that.
Right.
That makes sense to me. I now know what
Yeah.
needs they need met. And I can either evaluate, yes, I can meet those needs, or no, that's never going to work for me. I should just remove myself from that situation.
And instead of saying, oh, they're acting stupidly, you
Yeah.
could say, oh, they're acting in accordance with what they value, and
Right.
this makes sense to me. Okay, so how thinkers learn through meticulous research and critical thinking, right?
Yeah.
That's how they learn. So how do you, as a thinker, because we're talking about, yes, we want to meet the needs of people in our lives, but we also need to meet our own needs. So how do you, as a thinker, meet your own needs? And then I'll talk about, as someone who's married to a thinker, how to meet their needs.
So giving yourself the time and space to do the research that you feel like you need to do, or to put the plan together that you feel you need to have. And there is a rigidness to the thinker personality type, right? And learning to balance that with the needs of other people in the family. There are certain things that I just don't make a plan about anymore because I'm like, this isn't gonna work. There's too many people. I just need to let it go.
Yeah.
Right? So I love to travel. And the first few years we were married, we couldn't travel a lot. And then after we had a little bit more disposable income, we were able to travel more, sometimes stay with family. And we had a conversation, right? Because I would plan our trips down to be very detailed.
By the hour, like what we're doing by the hour.
And I would have
have a
all
schedule.
the information in a spreadsheet. If you have a spreadsheet lover in your life, strong indication they're a thinker. So
Yeah.
there's a joke in anybody that knows me. They ask me for information, whether it has to do with a family reunion or what are the jobs my kids are supposed to be doing that day, you know, because they're watching the kids, because, you know, we're filming YouTube content. And I'm like, don't you worry, it's in a spreadsheet. And so now the people in my life are just like, hey, can you share that spreadsheet with me? Like, they didn't even ask if there was one. They just knew there was. Don't worry, I got you. It's in a spreadsheet. Or it's saved in Google Maps, right? We would go on trips and you would be like, oh, I don't want to plan that. And then last minute, you'd be like, hey, what about this? Hey, what about that?
Well, because I'm a dreamer, and so we'd be heading to our destination
Yeah.
by the clock, and I'd be like, hey, bagels, right? Or hey, that looks fun, and I would just want to like
all
jump.
the possibilities.
Yes.
And I said, okay, here's the thing. We can have two types of vacations.
Yes.
I said, one where everything's planned out in advance. We know how much things cost, what time it opens, what time it closes, you know, all the dynamics
And we
of it.
stick to that
And we
schedule.
stick to that schedule. Or we can have a vacation where we just go and do things and see what happens. Like,
Yeah.
I'm fine with either one. I said, what I will not do is go on a vacation and last minute try and cram everything in or try and figure out the puzzle pieces and then be frustrated
Yeah.
because, oh, we missed that Subway or that place isn't open on that day. Like, that is what I won't do.
remember
I'm
this,
like,
yeah.
I'm happy to go either way, right? And so running a household with 7 people and meeting everybody's needs, like, there is a structure that the thinker provides that supports people. Like, that is needed, but too much structure is not supportive, it's stifling.
Yeah.
And the structure you can provide for yourself as an individual person typically is not stifling, but the more people you add to your circle, the more flexible it needs to become. I've also had a dear friend that I love very much years ago said, you know, Alicia, you're too demanding, you expect too much, and this is not an uncommon theme in my life. My mother has told me this since I was a child.
Have you ever considered that you ask too much, that you take too much for granted? Has it ever crossed your brilliant mind that I don't want to do this anymore?
So she's also not a thinker, and she would tell me that I was critical and so on and so forth, not understanding my need for one, structure, and two, I show love through evaluation, and I just want things to be better. And that doesn't mean that a thinker can't be critical. They can be critical, right?
But it's often not meant as criticism.
It's not meant
it's
as
meant to be helping.
Yeah, it's not meant as criticism, and it can be delivered in a loving and supportive way.
So, character that comes to mind, because I relate through pop culture and through fiction, is Hermione from the Harry Potter series.
Absolutely.
Who spends all her days in the library. In class, she's always raising her hand because she has the answers to the question. And she does enjoy being the person who knows things. Professor Snape calls her an insufferable know-it-all, and that hurts her feelings deeply because she doesn't want to be that, and she doesn't want to be superior to anybody. She just loves contributing knowledge. And when there's evil to be defeated, who creates the plan? It ain't Ron and Harry, that's for dang sure. It's Hermione.
Hermione. Severus. Snape.
So how do you meet a thinker's needs?
Yeah.
First of all, connect with them on topics of shared interest. Have a thoughtful, intellectual conversation. I can't tell you how many times in our relationship I'm like, let's have some mindless fun. And you're like, let's have a meaningful conversation. I'm like, okay. Because that's a need.
Yeah.
That's an absolute need. That's how you connect.
That's how I connect, is
Yeah.
through meaningful conversation. And that doesn't mean every conversation has to be meaningful, but I do need meaningful conversations.
Yes.
And that's not just in romantic relationships, that's also in friendships.
If you need to give them correction or feedback, it's best to take them aside privately, especially if you want there to not be like,
So praise them for seeing how things fit together. Praise them for their desire and their ability to make things better. That is their contribution.
and for saving your bacon when they make corrections in your plans. Again, it's not meant to be an insult. And for a lot of thinkers, if they realize that there is coming across as a criticism, if that's offered as gentle, loving feedback, they'll want to know how to present, right, their support in a way that's not taken as criticism. In my experience, they're generally open to that. What I've learned being married to you is thinkers generally, because they're introverted and they're task oriented, they do not love big social situations.
No, they do not.
And they don't aspire to be the life of the party. They generally
No.
don't aspire to be in the limelight. Those who do it,
Or on YouTube.
Or on YouTube. This is a big sacrifice for her. This is just out of love for you, right? That she's doing this, because this is not where she wants to be.
No.
I love being here. This is like torture for her.
Interesting.
And a lot of times, not all the time, some thinkers really struggle connecting with people on a personal level, right? When it comes to emotions or when it comes to passions. But when you connect with them on projects or intellectual discussion.
They love to discuss ideas.
Yes, they do. And that's actually an area where they can connect with dreamers. Dreamers and thinkers clash a lot the same way closers and healers do, because dreamers don't tend to think things through down to the minutia. Dreamers value having fun. Alicia, so learning styles. My style, as you see here on YouTube, is edutainment. I think my gift is to take things that I think that's really powerful, but man, it's boring the way it's presented. How can I spice it up so that it's really fun as it's presented?
And make it relatable.
Yes, a thinker's gonna say, just give me the straight facts. You don't have to dress it up and fluff it up and water it down with all this stuff, right? Right or wrong?
Oh, totally. It's 100% it.
Historical fiction, straight history.
Yeah.
Right? That's how we take it in. And something I have seen with almost every thinker I've ever known is they have a hidden, sometimes deeply hidden, playful and silly side, but it literally only comes out for a select handful of people who make them feel comfortable. What are you laughing about?
Nothing, just, it's true.
It's true.
Don't shame them for being shy or awkward. Don't try and get them to be more extroverted or to join the party. And they do have a witty, typically a dry side, but they will come out at their own pace and what is true to their nature. Don't try and push them to be something they're not.
Yeah.
I have an aunt who has a bunch of children, wide variety of personality types, and some of her kids are dominant thinkers and some of her kids are dominant dreamers. And she was always telling the dreamer, like, be quieter, let other people interact, calm down. And she's telling the thinker, you need to liven it up. You need to be more. You need to get more out there.
Engage more,
right?
yeah.
And so loving and supporting a person for who they are and how they want to show up in their life. And if you're a thinker and you're like, yeah, I would like to be more extroverted. Okay, great. That's because you made that choice. And what's one small step you can take in that direction, right? So they'll come out of their shell when they're ready.
Yes. I knew a specific moment where I was like, went from you're attractive and you're cool to talk to, oh, I'm super into you. You were talking about food and how you love to eat food.
I do love
and
food.
we've been talking for months, and all out of nowhere, you just went, eat, 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 eat. And it took me so by surprise, because your humor generally is not look at me humor, it's under the radar humor.
Right. It's dry.
And I'm like, there's a real silliness here. And again, it is not a comfortable area for a lot of thinkers, but it's there, and they enjoy letting it out if you make them feel safe.
So here's the thing. When thinkers' needs aren't being met, they become nitpicky. They become even more critical, right?
And withdrawn.
So that's something I notice within myself, because I will constantly evaluate everything going on around me. That's just my natural setting.
Yeah.
I typically have a filter of being like, that's a helpful thing to say. That's not a helpful thing to say. So I'm just going to let that go. But when I get in this space of evaluating and then needing to correct everything that you do, typically it's you.
Yeah. Well, it's because my life is so enmeshed with yours.
Right.
Because with other people, you're like, whatever, do your thing.
But
Doesn't
it
affect
happens
me.
with the children too,
Yeah.
right? When I get into this place where I can tell I'm being critical and nitpicky and it's not helping, and it's not coming from a place of love. Like
Yeah.
it's coming from a place of frustration or feeling like things are chaotic and I don't like chaos. I like order and organization. I put labels on everything. It's okay.
Yeah.
That way everybody knows to put things where they go, right? I need to take a break. I need to take some space. I recharge by being alone and meeting my own needs.
Yeah, for sure. And something that I've recognized, thinker is my least dominant personality. It is the weakest muscle that I have when it comes to my brain. But when I come to you, if I want something and I come to you and I say, here's what I've thought and here's the plan, and I've really thought it through and researched it, I can't tell you the pride that swells within my bosom when you're like, that's a good plan. Like, thank you.
I did it. And the thinker feels seen and loved and supported by not always having to come up with the plan.
Yes.
Because that gets exhausting.
And when they do come up with the plan, if people say they're on board with it, then follow the plan. And that's
Yeah.
how this works.
You gotta follow the plan.
Yeah.
And so, question for you: are you a thinker? Are you a dreamer? Those two personalities are the opposites. Do you have a thinker-dreamer dynamic in your life? Has this video been helpful? Are you going to share this with them so that you guys can learn how to better support and meet each other's needs? We'd love to hear your comments below.
And if you have a thinker in your life, but you're not a thinker, does this help to explain why they are the way that they are?
Yeah.
Or if you are a thinker, does this go, yeah, that's me? Let us know in the comments below. Now, if you're joining us just here at the tail end, you need to go back and catch the full series of all 4 personality types, starting with dreamers. That's going to be the video that pops up here at the end. If you want greater help in applying this to your life and to your relationships, join our membership site where you can take the full personalities course and do our test to see what personality type you are.
Yeah.
If you want a bit more support, a little more personalized to your specific needs, schedule a complimentary 15-minute consultation with a member of our clinical team, yo. Go to menditlight.com and do it. Do it now. That was more closer than thinker. Sit with it. Evaluate if it's really a fit for you. But no, that's what the 15-minute call is for, to weigh it all out and get all the information. I got this.
Thinkers need the information.
So until next time, folks, keep shining.
We need your light.